All right. So we are starting. Good morning, everyone. You're welcome to another edition of Random Conversations. So today we're going to be talking about starting over. Like when's like the right time to hit reset, or how many times basically are you allowed in your life to hit the reset button. And I think starting over is one of the major things, or is one of the things a lot of us are scared of, because it means that we are going into something that we've never done before and leaving something that we've had experience with, or we had an assurance with in that sense. And for today's conversation, we are having Paul. I knew Paul in 2016-ish, 2017. Yes, I walked into Planet Nest and he was one of the persons that was there. So sorry, I saw Paul in 2017. I don't know him, but over the years, I've heard bits of his story, and it was shocking when I realized that one day I just saw a picture of him at an airport, and he has never been back since then. So Paul, thank you for having this conversation. So if there's anybody that can tell us what it means to start over, to like carry your life to another place and just hit the reset button, I think Paul is in the best position to be able to do that. So everybody, this is Paul Mofesola Paul, or as his name tag is Mofesola Banjo, and he would be our guest for today's conversation. So, Paul, you could let us know a bit about yourself, who you are, and yeah, just a bit of background background of who Paul is before I start driving in the questions.
Okay, thank you, Toluache. It's good to be here and just like be able to tell a little bit of my story. My name is Mofesola Banjo Paul. Uh, for almost 3 years now, no one has been calling me Paul. My name is Mofe. So there is a bit of a funny story behind that actually. So when I got admission into the university, all my life, everyone had known me as Mofe, Mofesola from my first name. And getting into the university, I wanted to try something different. And then I'm like, okay, let me introduce myself to people as just Paul. And, it was cool throughout university days and the rest of my stay in Nigeria. But when I was moving out of the country, it became very important for me to, bring back my first name because that's a name that easily shows my origin and, stuff like that. So I reverted back to Mofesola and it's Mofe, moving forward. So sometimes when two people say that, oh, Paul, I'm talking to Paul, I'm like, who's Paul? Because I'm no longer used to that name. Okay, so my name is Mofesola. I am a software engineer. I'm a Nigerian, uh, and I currently live in Lithuania, Europe. I can never tell if it's Eastern Europe or whatever, but it's in the Baltics. Uh, so I don't know how far back my introduction is supposed to start, but let me just start from where Tolu started from 2017. So before moving out of Nigeria in 2019, I was the co-founder and chief technical officer for a handful of companies, Planet Nest, 115 Garage, um, Seed Dev Group, etc. Some of the companies have rebranded now. You probably know them by different names. And some of them are currently not in public view right now. So that was what I was doing before I moved out of the country. I was towing the entrepreneurial path, trying to build something, and I have been doing that since 2010. when I got into the university. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on where I'm coming from. I mean, that's not the lowdown on where I'm coming from, but I guess we'll get there. But that's just like a brief introduction. Um, is there any more piece of information that should be included in this introduction, Tolu?
No, 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 it's fine. I think it's a good start. It's a good start. So you mentioned you had a couple of things you were doing, and so for for a number of persons who might have known you then, you were living the life, like you were living the life. So, um, what were like the conditions you met before deciding to hit reset?
Okay. So the first thing I would like to say is it's a kind of disclaimer to to guide the listeners of this conversation that we should always remember that there is something called hindsight bias, and hindsight bias makes everything make sense when you look back. Like, oh yeah, I took this decision, I did this, I did that, and then it looks like, because you are telling the story of what has happened, it looks like you had everything figured out, or you knew what you were doing actually. So we should pay attention to that. I'm going to try as much as possible not to fall prey too much to hindsight bias here, and kind of start saying, oh, I made this decision, I did that, I did this, because there's a lot of happenstance, aka chance, that goes on in daily decisions that we make. But anyways, um, so what informed my decision then? First of all, was pure opportunity. I saw an opportunity. It did not make sense at first, but what's the harm in trying? Then I tried, and then it began to make sense. And then I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. And when I fully understood the background, the message that this opportunity presented, the opportunity being what eventually took me out of Nigeria anyway. When I fully understood you know, the what the opportunity was about, what it represented, etc., then that was when I made a decision that okay, I think it's worth, you know, starting all over. But that's not to say it was easy. So,
All right, I think that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very sure and one being I had no idea, how sure are you that this opportunity was going to lead to something or to now to like what you have now? How sure are you?
well, I wasn't 100% sure. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say I had 6 for guarantee. I was sure, up to level 6, and then the rest was hope. Like I hoped it was going to work out. There was, especially for the first year, there was always the question of what if I have to go back? What if I have to go back to Nigeria? I had already kind of dismantled, so to speak, whatever I was building. Like I had uprooted myself from that community. So what if I had to go back and start all over and kind of rebuild or plug myself back into the system where I came from? So yeah, I was sure, let's say 6/10, and then the rest was like serious fingers crossed level of hope.
No, the question I was about to ask was, what if you what if you had to go back?
Well,
Uh,
if I had to go back, I mean, I would go back because I have to. But it would not have been the worst thing in the world, honestly. It would not have been the worst thing in the world because, again, I think that I was lucky enough to have had the life that I had before leaving Nigeria. So it won't essentially look like picking up from nothing if I had to go back, because I would still have a couple of things. I did not have like a fallback plan, but it's something that I could have easily come up with if I had to go back to Nigeria. Maybe not easily, but quickly.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. All right. So I knew you are Nest. Then you mentioned a couple of other places. You mentioned CDEV. You mentioned um one word 115 garage. So how did you manage the whole emotions that was surrounding your living? Because definitely you had to leave something to start somewhere or to start over somewhere. So how did you handle all those emotions? So the reason I'm asking is because one of the major things, this is a personal opinion, one of the major things that stop us from making a pivotal decisions are the people that are already existent in our lives and the emotional investment they have made or we have made together with them. So we do not want to travel out, we do not want to start a new job, we do not want to leave a particular city because of the people we have met or because of the emotional investments that has been made in that place. So that's the reason why I'm asking. So how did you handle all those emotional stuff surrounding your decision to reset?
Okay. So again, steering clear of uh, steering clear of
Hindsight bias.
hindsight bias. I know this is not what people would want to hear, but it is the truth. And the truth is, I had no plan for handling it. I did not have any active, you know, any active strategy on handling it. And also, I should mention that my my moving out of Nigeria, which is like the reset that we are talking about here, was not entirely. It wasn't entirely the solo traveling to the diaspora, package, the experience where you are like alone and singled out and trying to fit in into a new culture, a new community. When I moved out of Nigeria, I had the good luck of moving with more than 10 other people that you know we still remain friends till today. So that kind of gave me a nice, soft landing in a new country, because it's like you're moving with people that can potentially give you the sense of community that you would be missing out on by leaving the country. So again, I cannot discount the fact that it was a major leg up in being able to like handle the mental distress. But at the same time, the the distress itself was still real, because I mean it was me leaving everything I had known, and all my life, all the people I have known, the places, the things that the culture that I had known for 26 years, and then going away to go start, somewhere where I am just probably going to be at best, at least for the start, a statistic. So it was a little bit of it wasn't a little bit, it was a big bit, you know, depressing actually. And how did I go through it? I had community, I had, people that I could always we partied together, we shared our struggles together, we complained together, and then we celebrated together also. So it was easier having people to share the experience with.
So thank you. So basically community for you has been a big part of um should I call it a survival plan? I don't want to use the word survival plan, but that's the word that's
I mean,
coming to
that's
my
what it
mouth.
was.
So okay, now that you're here, looking back, what what are like the things you could have done, so you could have done better to manage that transition process?
uh, I don't know. I don't think there's anything I could have done, like in my capacity, to, have made it easier. I think I had it the easiest that I could possibly have it. Um there is, I cannot imagine if I had to like go through it alone. That would be the worst experience ever. So yeah, I don't know if there is anything I could do. Even now, looking back, I don't think there is anything I could have done that would have made it any easier on me, the transition itself.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Um, so for some of us here, our reset or our starting over is not in terms of picking ourselves up and leaving the country. For some of us, it might be changing career trajectory. For some of us, it might be actually relocating to another state within the same country,
Mhm.
or so there are basically a lot of things, or a lot of scenarios that can come into play when someone wants to hit the reset button. So if there were three recommendations that you would give personally, from, because your resets covered a lot of things. Your reset covered picking yourself up and traveling to a new city or a new country in that regard. And I think it's also somehow influenced the fact that your career trajectory, though in the same industry, it also, should I say, tilted a little bit or shifted. Um, and so many other things basically. So what are like the recommendations? Maybe three, maybe four, maybe five, maybe 10, depending on how much of it you have, that you'd give to persons considering hitting the reset button, either in relationship, either in relocation, career, or anything in general.
Okay. So I will consider this an open mic to like just go straight and then say everything that I want to say. Okay, so like you have rightly mentioned, reset buttons are like everywhere, and they usually are localized. That is like specific to people's circumstances. So for some people, I think, especially if you are like trying to build something in an entrepreneurial path, a an ever-present reset button that is there for you is like, am I on the right path? Like, okay, fine, I have big dreams, I have aspirations, I have things that I want to make or build this business or whatever I'm building into. Will I achieve it? Is it feasible? Does this product even make sense? Does this service I'm trying to render, does anybody want it? Like, is it going to be all I hoped it will be? Or will I just wake up one day 10, 15 years after, after wasting a lot of time just to see that it was not worth it? So there is always that, nagging thought. At least I know it was there for me. That, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? This, that, and that, and that. So for that, the first thing I would say is, while I am not an expert at, hitting reset buttons or have a master's in doing stuff like that, I can, the things I'm saying are things that I believe and things that I apply to my own life and things I would do if I was in the situation. So for a case like that, where you first of all, you're not even sure of what you're doing. You're not sure if you should continue or if you should exit. I think most times we usually know the answers to these questions, and we probably are just scared of taking a decision, or we are, because of the uncertainty of what lies ahead after the decision, it makes it even harder to make that decision. And this is what I would say to that. If something no longer feels right, then it certainly is the time to take a good look at it and do like a solid analysis on it. Do an analysis, take stock, try to see uh, what are the what's it called? What's going to happen if I continue? What's going to happen if I quit? Like, what's the worst that can happen in both cases? I think if we're able to like have that brutal analysis done, it's still not going to be easy, but it can bring a little bit of clarity into choosing which path to go ahead with. So knowing when to quit, there is no red tape for knowing when to quit. We just know. We just know, and hopefully we see the signals. I personally believe that the signals come more than once. I think they keep coming until you eventually, you know, do what you need to do. So I think we need to pay attention to the signals. If we stop feeling fulfilled with something, if you start feeling like, okay, it doesn't really make too much sense to me anymore, because there's always the tendency to, you know, I don't know if this one is a sunk cost fallacy or something. And the idea of that is, I have invested so much in this, so it only makes sense that I keep investing more, even if it's not going anywhere, because of how much time, how much effort I have put in it. So maybe I
Yeah.
should just continue putting stuff into it, because you've put so much, you want to keep putting more, because it looks like you are losing all of that if you just look away. But a good way to think about that is, you already lost all of that. So do you want to lose more? That's the question. It's not, will I lose all of that if I look away? I mean, you already spent all of that. So you probably already lost all of that. So instead of losing more, maybe just look into something different. So there is that. I hope that in all this, my TED talk, you'll be able to like pick one or two things that will be useful for you. But I'm just kind of, saying stuff that I believe in. And also, that is not to say that for every obstacle we meet, it's a sign that we should quit. I mean, if 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 anything we are doing is not tested, then maybe it's not worth doing. So it will always be tested, like there will always be tests, there will always be things that will be hard to do. Life itself is hard. So that's a different thing. Like, it doesn't mean that for every obstacle we meet, or for everything or anything that is not working, that we should quit. That is not the case. The case is that when you do feel the need to quit, then don't don't be um, don't be persuaded to do more just because of how much you've already done. So there is that. How do you know when to quit also? I think I've spoken about how do you know when to quit. How do you know if you're doing the right thing? I don't know, but this is my own philosophy to it. If if you know that what you are doing is not the wrong thing, then you can keep doing it until you know what the right thing is. As long as you are not doing the wrong thing, I mean, by the wrong thing, I mean, as long as you are not doing something wrong, I'm not saying the wrong thing now as the opposite of the right thing. The right thing, like this is the purpose for my life, this is what I am supposed to be doing. And anything apart from that is the wrong thing. No, that's not what I'm saying. As long as what you are doing is not a wrong thing, it's not illegal, it's not something that is hurting people, it's not something that is, terrible or just plain time wasting, then I would continue doing that and give it time because I am a very I consider myself a student of time. I believe that time solves the most complicated problems in life. So, like, if we just give things time, we would get to see, like, okay, the best path forward just by giving it time. Because sometimes also when you don't, try to make hasty decisions right in the heat of the moment, just because you are pressured or you are, just can't have it anymore, etc. It becomes easier to like think critically and see all your options, consider all the variables, and then make a decision. So, and what better way to get yourself to that calm state than giving it time? So, how do you know you are doing the right thing? You probably will not know because, like I said, it's easy when you've done the right thing and then you now have to talk about it 3 years after and tell people, oh, yeah, I made a decision. I will never be poor again in my life. And then I did this. I moved to Lagos. I did that. I mean, all of that is easy and sweet, but I don't think that you actually sat down to do that at that point. You probably were just winging it and, trying all the cards on the table. So you may not know in the instant if what you are doing, if the choice you are making is the right choice. But first of all, time will tell. And second of all, I think when you give it time, it becomes clear to you if what you are doing is what you actually want to be doing, or maybe you would come up with something different that you think you want to do. So I don't know if I have run out of stuff I want to say. Maybe another question will help put me back on track.
All right, thank you, Paul. So this has been very, very enlightening. Starting from the fact that, uh, so just to put us in perspective, you clarified hindsight bias, the fact that everything, like Steve Jobs would say, the dots connect. In hindsight, when you look backward, the dots actually connect. Everything gets to make sense when you look backwards. But in the time where you are experiencing or living that story, it doesn't really make sense. That's like a big pointer that you laid before you continued, and then you talked us through how community was very, very pivotal in your transition phase. And so I'm just like giving it back a some people joined in a bit late, so I'm just giving like a run through of what you have let us in on. And then recently you told us if something no longer feels right, what we can do is take stock, weigh our options, look back and look front. So do I want to then making mention of this general misconception that you have to you have to rough it out because you have invested so much in a particular thing when you can just let go and try something else. And I think that has been a similarity in a lot of persons I have looked at, and even in the world in general, when we take an outlook on the world and see people that have really, really pivoted. Martin Luther King, there was something he was used to do. There was something he had lived with all his life, which was racial bias. But and definitely he must have, you have to struggle to be a slave. You can't just you don't just wake up and be like, oh my God, let me be a slave today. But it's a struggle to be a slave. And then you mentioned something very, very pivotal. Another thing that was very pivotal, that you're a student of time. I think I wrote in one of my sticky notes that we are all slaves to history. But I think putting it that you're a student of time makes it sound better. So right now, just before I continue, I would like to see if there's anyone if there's anyone listening that has a question or two for Paul before we continue. Anybody? Adeleke, Adesola, Shekaina, Dara, Bumi. Does anyone have a question for Paul?
Hey, hello, Paul.
Hey, Adeleke, what's up?
Yeah, very good. It's been a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
missed you up on WhatsApp and stuff. Yeah, so you're very, very big on time, and I think one of the reasons why I particularly like you is because you're a country. I mean, everybody looks at stuff from this, or you're this kind of person that wants to, look at it from another angle. I mean, you want to like change the perspective and say, okay, how about we look at it this way? I mean, I just want to ask. This might be unrelated, it might throw us a little bit off track, but can the contrarian values, can the contrarian spirit be deliberately developed, even from people who are always have people who have always gone with the establishment? And they, aside from curiosity, is there any other attributes that they need to develop a contrarian spirit? That's my question.
Um, Thanks for the question. First of all, I actually do not consider myself as someone with a contrarian spirit. I just think of myself as someone who likes to know all of the variables. And I understand how that can come across as contrarian because usually there is a governing consensus regarding most matters, you know, most matters that concern human beings. We usually have, even if we don't agree on all the details and the specifics, we usually kind of have a little bit of consensus and a general direction where things are heading. So for someone that is questioning that and trying to consider other variables, yeah, it's very likely or easy to see the person as being contrarian. While I do not think that being contrarian or having the contrarian spirit is a bad thing, I don't think it is at all. I think, if anything, it makes you make better quality decisions. At the same time, I don't think that it necessarily has any inherent value to it, apart from making you devil's advocate or the designated dissenter all the time. So, uh, how can can it be developed even by people that you know are not naturally inclined to questioning the status quo? I think so. I think it can be. I mean, it starts with dialogue, it starts with questions, and while I do not know what value it has inherently as it's on its own, because really it can be a pain in the butt also having people that are always on the other side, just for the sake of being on the other side. But to answer your question, do I think it can be developed by anybody? Of course, yes, I think it can be developed by anybody because it all starts with a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
All right. Does anybody have another question? Adesola, Dara, Bumi. All right. No question. Then, so from I picked up something from what when you were answering Leke's question about the contrarian spirit. But so, do you not feel it's an overkill to want to always know all of the variables involved in a particular thing? And is it possible to even know all of the variables involved in a particular thing before attempting it or starting in that sense?
Yeah, so absolutely not. It is not. Well, I mean, I would not. I'll probably try to refrain from making a general statement like that. It's not possible. But I don't think that it's possible to know all of the variables. But you can try. Because, there's this popular saying, shoot for the stars, land on the moon. So if you set out to know as much as you can, you'll probably know more than the person who is satisfied with knowing just one thing. But at the same time, that's why I'm saying that the contrarian attribute itself does not have an inherent value or none that I can see just from being contrarian alone. It has to have like a healthy mix of other things also. There's always the aspect of taking a leap in the dark, especially if you are going to make decisions as drastic as hitting the reset button. Of course, there's always taking the leap in the dark. So just like I said, for making my decision to move, I had like it's a 60% of guarantee and 40% of vibes and inshallah, so to speak. So like it's quite improbable or unlikely to know all the variables that are involved. As a matter of fact, you waste too much time if you are trying to know all the variables just to make a decision. But if you're trying to know all the variables so that you can understand the domain of study more, that makes sense. That's still not to say you will know all the variables, but at least you will know a bit more than the person who is not trying to know all the variables.
So basically, um, don't be the guy that always wants to have a contrary opinion just for the sake of having a contrary opinion.
Mm-hmm. I
Okay, be the
mean,
guy that
I can see the
don't.
appeal. It makes people, it could make people look cool, enigmatic, mysterious, but at the same time, it can make them annoying, especially if they don't like have a way to balance it with like other qualities.
Right. That's absolutely fair. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense. It makes a whole lot of sense, and it helps in a broader view. It helps people get a larger perspective of a particular thing when there's always somebody questioning. Oh, so why did you do this? Can we not do it this way? Just to add a bit of flesh to it, something happened in the office. I think yesterday or day before yesterday. We intended to do something. We intended to run targeted ads at specific locations in the world, to specific countries in the world. So what my boss decided that okay, is this technical something, so I don't know how to put it in all the technical English. So I'm just going to explain it in English. So that the content on the landing page is going to change depending on your location in the world. So I think it has something to do with IP address tracking and all of those plenty techie stuff. So, but so bringing it to the meeting, we had so the CTO is always questioning, like he questions everything, even something that makes logical sense, still going to question it. But so it was like, I don't think that's a good idea because there might be Nigerians currently in Dubai that would want to maybe download the app, or because it's an app, and download the app because they are actually Nigerians that just traveled for a trip in Dubai, and making it so that they are not able to access it when they're in Dubai would be, I think it defeats the purpose of sending out or making the ad or something, because it's not like available in those regions, first of all, because of licensing issues. So, and I think that it helped us sit back and kind of like think, oh, this is actually true. What if you have Nigerians in these regions where we are about to like restrict or maybe make the content on the landing page change depending on those locations? So right now we are all back to the drawing board trying to find something else that would work. But without him asking those questions, I don't think we would have had would have seen it in this particular perspective. So thank you, Leke, for your question. I think, and thank you, Paul, for the answers. Makinde, you just joined. So we are talking about starting over and how we can hit the reset button. So we have about 12 minutes more on this call. I'll give an opportunity for anyone that wants to speak, maybe something you've learned so far, before I ask the final question from Paul. So is there anybody that wants to make a contribution from what you've learned? If you have a question too, that's also fine. Dara, Adesola, Makinde, Tolu, anybody? All right, no question. All right, that's cool. So final question, and this is a very important question for me. So K drama or anime?
Well, I'm sorry, none of the above.
Oh my god! So what?
I don't watch either of them. I mean, that's when I say I don't watch either of them, it means like I'm not a fan of either of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I can't pick because I don't even know what the specific characteristics I'm supposed to be looking for.
Okay. Another very important question. Stew on top of the rice or stew and rice in separate plates?
Depends on what kind of stew. It depends. I mean, okay, well, yeah. I guess stew is kind of has the same meaning everywhere. So stew on top of the rice, because that's how I grew up eating it. So
All right, because there are some cultists in Nigeria that have decided to start doing rice and stew in different plates. Like I still
yeah,
don't.
but
I'm still
I mean,
thinking
if
how
you
that.
if you think about it, it could make sense. It depends on how much stuff will be in the stew. Maybe like you have different things or like you may need a separate bowl for the stew and the meat and the protein, everything that will be in it. Because I mean, rice itself is like a mound already. So if you are trying to fit all of those on top of it,
All right, no problem, no problem. All right, thank you, Paul. Stew and rice in separate plates is top tier. To see what I'm saying, there are some cultists in this world. They're just there. They are very select few. It's very select category of people that like to do stew and rice in separate plates. They are just wasting plate for the last one that washed the plates.
I thought I
So
saw someone raise their hand.
yeah, that was Lakey. I don't know if Lakey, you have a comment?
No,
Question?
you said the questions are very important to you. I am wondering how you're going to gauge their importance, given the questions you're asking. Are you trying to separate the cultists from the non-cultists? Because it looks
No.
like you have both categories on your call.
Well, we know what we are going to do with them. As I said, it's very important. So I have why I need the answers. So I just know what to do. Yes.
Wonderful. We'll be looking
All right.
forward to what to do with the answers.
No problem. Thank you so much.
You're
All right,
welcome.
Paul. Or let me say Mofe. I think you prefer Mofe now, so let me put it at Mofe. All right, Mofe. Thank you so much, so much for having this conversation with me. It's enlightening. It's totally not what I did not even expect anything. I had my major expectation was that okay, I was going to come and know. I just basically wanted to come and hear the story and um all of the components or all of the things you had to weigh before you made your decision. And I think I have gotten that, and I have even gotten more in that sense. because I've gotten more basically. And when I'll be putting together my notes, I have notes for all of the classes. Lately, sorry, I've not had time to put them up on Medium. But when I'm putting together my notes, I'll be sure to share with the world the extra lessons I've gotten from our conversation. So thank you so much, Paul, for honoring, for being available. Stay safe, stay jiggy, and be you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for coming around. Thank you.